the top of its game. It's everything that I see as important to understand and to show respect to in one project. And the excitement that I'll get from here is when people walk into them doors and see what we've created and what we've done with collaboration with the designers, with the structural engineers. That is what the journey is for me, and all of that background work that we do to get to that point is what makes this job special for me. What we are going through here, it's never going to be replicated. What we're doing here is a true one-off, and thousands upon thousands of people will walk through this building and be wowed by it. What wouldn't you love about that?
My name is Hannah Jackson and I am a project manager for Norwich Museum Service.
My name's Matt Bidewell. I'm a senior project manager for Morgan Sindall Construction.
So my name's Erin Davidson. I work for Field & Wilson Architects.
My name's Lucy Gresham-Hill. I work for Morgan Sindall. I'm an apprentice site manager.
My name is Tom Lefevre and I work for Conisbee.
I'm Abdullah Haba. I work for Atelier Projects. I am project manager and contract administrator.
To be a part of the Norwich Castle Royal Palace Reborn project for me is it's a once in a career opportunity to work on something of this scale in a museum that means so much to me. I grew up in Norwich. I have very, very fond memories of exploring the galleries right when I was very little.
I guess everyone's going to say this, but I went to the museum when I was at school. I live locally in Norwich. You can't escape the castle and its significance. To be involved in an iconic local building means everything.
It's probably a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It's Grade 1 listed building. It's sitting on a scheduled ancient monument. Although we have very strong ideas of what everything's going to look like, what we've designed, until we finish the archaeology, we actually don't know the impact. And so there's still this very strong dialogue that's happening. And I think that dialogue is really exciting as a designer to be involved in.
I am from Morocco myself. Being here in the UK and working on this valuable asset brings huge satisfaction and means a lot to me.
So I am fundamentally a builder. I'm a project manager who has always been excited about the processes, the quality of the materials, and this is the top of its game.
And the fact that I used to visit here as a kid when we were learning about history, and so it's not just like you go to work, you do your job, you come home. You're going to work and you're learning, and you know that you're kind of making your mark on history. There'll be people in 250 years' time who are learning about when Lucy worked on the castle, so I think that's probably what I enjoy the most about this job.
So Norwich Castle Royal Palace Reborn is a key project for Norwich Museum Service to undertake. It's essentially our way of ensuring the future of this iconic 900-year-old landmark. We want our visitors in the future to be able to step back in 900 years worth of history and to experience what Norwich Castle would have been like.
So there's modern interventions that are going into the building, which are very modern, very of the time, very contemporary. And then we have the repair packages. So we had to really unify the two of those and make sure that whatever we were adding really did bring kind of excitement and joy to the building, but also where we were repairing, that we were doing these very traditionally.
The Morgan Sindall team are reinstating the original Norman stair layout along the east side of the castle keep. So visitors in the early medieval period would have climbed up those stairs and they'd have gone into the Great Hall.
And it was really about reimagining it so that we were reinterpreting what was once there, but also allowing full access to every floor of the keep.
There's a new lift going in and a linking bridge that will enable them to have that same experience of entering into that important space. Once inside the keep, there will be a new lift that will take them from the ground floor right up to the keep roof. So that means, again, everyone will be able to go up on the battlements and see Norwich from a fantastic viewpoint.
And I think that is seriously evocative and, really engages with all aspects of the fabric. It is allowing every bit, every corner to be explored.
To a certain extent, we're finishing off some work that was commenced about 140 years ago when the architect Edward Boardman transformed Norwich Castle, as it was a jail at that point and had been a jail for over 500 years, into the city's museum. And he very much wanted to put back the original Norman floor level.
So by putting in the modern intervention and reimagining the floors, you're allowing the viewer, the public, to engage with this building in a way that it hadn't before.
Making sure that any visitor, whether they have additional needs or not, can really engage with the museum, engage with the castle and find out more about Norwich's rich and fascinating history.
I feel a responsibility to be a custodian for Hugh's vision. In a way, it kind of completed this really lovely narrative of Fielden and Mawson, just because Sir Bernard started on the cathedral and Hugh Fielden, his nephew, was working on the castle. So it was this really lovely kind of family story that was related to Fielden and Mawson. And so as a firm, it's very close to our hearts, and the delivery of it is very, very special for us as well, because we want to make Hugh very proud.
So to create anything with the building such as Norwich Castle, it's a Grade 1 listed building. It stands in the middle of a busy city centre on top of a man-made mound, which itself is a scheduled ancient monument, is a complex undertaking.
It's a Norman castle, which has only really been worked on substantially 4 times in its 1,000-year history. We want to make sure that everything's right, and to make sure that everything's right takes time.
It's a Grade 1 listed building and a scheduled ancient monument, and every decision has to have those 2 elements in the background. What is right for the scheduled ancient monument might not be right for the architecture, and there's a compromise that has to happen.
We proposed and put forward something called a PCSA, a Pre-Construction Services Agreement. So following the successful tender, we then looked to carry out early day surveys on site. The investigations that we looked at there were obviously intrusive asbestos surveys to make sure that we were not putting anyone at risk and looking for any element that we could avoid or be conscious of prior to removing from the build itself. We used scanning techniques within the mound itself to look for voids, to look for underground services.
You wouldn't normally build on 9 metres of made ground without pretty complicated foundations. So I think addressing some of the problems with the ground, dealing with potential movements, future movements of the keep and the new structure was a real challenge.
The interface with the existing, which is the most challenging. We have a Grade 1 listed building. We need to connect very modern interventions to it, and how we're doing that, what those connections look like, how much historic fabric needs to be either removed or fixed to.
Other challenges include working inside the building, in and amongst the scheduled monument for drainage designs. For lifting flagstones which have been laid since Victorian age, making sure that they're lifted in such a way that they're labelled so that when we come to put them back in, they go together perfectly. It'll be probably the world's hardest jigsaw to put back together, but it is something that we had to consider.
You have to understand the history of the building to understand the alterations of the building. We've had to look at defects from over 100 years old. We've compared paintings, watercolour paintings, and historical data with modern survey data, intrusive and non-intrusive investigation data to fully understand what we might find hidden behind the surface.
Due to its importance, there are, as I said, many stakeholders involved, and we have to manage these interfaces.
You have our client, archaeologists, you have Historic England, you have the local authority, who also all have views on what that connection should look like. And so it's a conversation. Everything's a conversation.
The steelwork inside the keep is very complicated. It's taken the keep back to how it was originally, or close to it as we possibly can.
So where we're installing new, for the most part, we're trying not to bear on any of the existing structure.
The new steelwork structure only occurs where absolutely necessary. That's the first thing. Every beam is challenged. The location of every beam is challenged and carefully planned. But the idea is actually that the new structure actually improves the stability and the longevity of the existing castle walls. The steel is carefully inserted at multiple levels, and we're targeting previous scarring and beam pockets where we can, and then where we can't, we're minimising those. At roof level, it's threading steel beams carefully through the existing timber roof without harming the timber roof, and also in a way that minimises the risk of weather coming in and damaging the timber.
There's lots of ways of thinking as to how this could happen, one of which was to remove substantial parts of the roof to enable the tower crane to then lower the steel in. The issue there is that by removing the roof, you then introduce massive challenges in weather tightening and protecting the fabric of the inside of the building. We know that wind loading was going to be a real issue. We know that tying into the existing structure is not available to us. So on an ordinary scenario where we could have put scaffold above the top and monoflex the whole of the building, it would have to be standalone and not fixing into the Norman structure. So again, thinking outside the box, working with our supply chain to look at the best ways forward, we've developed scenarios that we can actually take inside the keep spider cranes. So instead of the crane using the roof access to install the steel, we're going to be building from the inside up.
The other thing that we're really trying to do is ensure that there is clarity for the visitor between new and old. So for instance, on the new first floor, we're having a glass perimeter that's going around, so it really looks like the new floor is floating in the space.
The uniqueness of some of the detailing and the materials that we're working on here takes a real specialist to understand what needs to be done and how it needs to be done.
We're really trying to make a conscious effort of being honest with our materials and honest with this level of intervention that's going into the building.
We have looked at specific joinery companies for medieval doors, and not only the aesthetic appearance of them, but is the mechanisms and how they do the jointing in line with how it would have been. And we've looked at salvaging and reusing of the crest within the mosaic in the reception, lifting that and taking it away to a bespoke workshop to be remodelled and brought back and relaid into the floor. So these kind of things aren't your normal operation on any other building site. So we have to be really, really careful in our selection. The lifeblood of any project is to make sure that logistics is fully catered for throughout the duration of the entire project. So one of the first elements that we had to consider is the Norman Castle is sitting on top of a scheduled monument, which is some 18 metres higher than the ground level around us. To get access to the castle base itself is a bridge, and the bridge leads onto the dungeons. The dungeons being beneath the bridge in front of the main entrance to the castle. People believe that the weight restriction shown on the front of the bridge doors is for the bridge itself. It isn't. It's the capacity that the dungeon can take across the edge of the bridge. It's still a constraint, and a big constraint when it comes to substantial works within inside the castle itself. What it means is that we can't drive a mobile crane across here. We can't take large-scale cherry pickers or scissor lifts or select pieces of equipment. We have to be very careful on material movement. So all of that means that we had to think and utilise the surrounding areas that we had, and we came up with the use of tower crane.
So these were all logistics we had to start thinking about kind of from day one, and we had to compile the construction and deconstruction method statement to get various consents from the client and stuff like that, and that all was kind of how we are carrying out the job from day one right through to completion. So
the challenges that installing the tower crane on the mound brought was we need to install piles to take the load for the tower crane to be erected. That in itself, again, not insurmountable. We used a rig that was less than 7 tonnes to get across the bridge, but we're going into a scheduled monument. So for going into a scheduled monument, we had to get scheduled monument consent, which we have the plans drawn up, and that has to go through all the local plan and all the way to Secretary of State to get sign off. The northwest door is part of the new build that we're installing, so a new doorway is going to again form our access into the keep basement.
You know, we're about to start tunnelling through those walls, and that's, you know, and looking at how the Normans constructed their masonry walls, which is kind of unprecedented level of intervention, but gives enormous understanding at the same time.
The piling works on here are going to be done through sectional flight auger for full consideration of vibration, noise and access. So coming through over this bridge, we need to make sure it's under 7 tonnes. Going into them environments, we need to make sure the mast isn't fouled and that we've got a controlled method of getting the piles down to a suitable bearing through 18 metres of man-made material.
It's like a bit of a eureka moment when you finally overcome a problem that you've been thinking about for weeks, and as a team you've come up with a solution. It's definitely a sense of accomplishment.
So where we're at the moment is deconstruction of the keep interior. The Boardman gallery inside the keep has been removed, majority salvaged. The scaffold in there has been remaining in place for the pockets of the new steelwork to be investigated and to be exposed. Meanwhile, underneath the principal floor, we've been doing some works in the basement. Then basement works, again, removing of the flagstones has been dealt with predominantly through NMS, and we have now exposed the scheduled monument, protected it.
I love seeing little bits and pieces starting to form on site. I love seeing that the vision starts to fit in how you envisioned it. And also the end, you know, when you kind of come in and all the hard work, all the questions, all the stress, all the late nights, you know, the purpose is complete. You walk in and the vision is there. Even when they took down the tunnel that goes into the rotunda, and you got to see the wall of the keep exposed for the first time in many, many, many years. We all stood back and we were like, this is what it's all about, you know, seeing this wall, seeing this exposed, and the fact that we know we're not going to enclose on it again, you know, that it will remain exposed as a key feature for everybody.
So every day you're learning something new, you're learning something about the history, and the fact that I used to visit here as a kid when we were learning about history, and so it's not just like you go to work, you do your job, you come home, you're going to work and you're learning.
From stained glass removal to lead work, to terrazzo and mosaic works, to lime plaster samples, to ceramics. We have discovered a Norman pier in there, we've discovered pottery, bone, all sorts of bits and pieces throughout that process, all dealt with under a watch and brief with an archaeologist in place. And all of this done by hand. So we really are going back to sort of older methods of work because of the restrictions that we have.
This project is a traditional project where design is progressed to a certain level and then we move into contract with Morgan Sindall. However, due to the project's complications and complexity, there is an interface there between Morgan Sindall and the design team during what we call stage 5. That interface there cannot be managed unless we are totally open about risks, about problems that we might face, being considerate towards the contractor, and the contractor being considerate towards the design team and the client team. There are certain aspects of this build that our supply chain and we will be responsible for bringing to the table design. Fundamental elements of that include some of the glazing to the bridge design, which is going to be an amazing bridge between the keep and the Percival building, which will be a real wow point from Fielden and Mawson.
That was really a blank sheet moment where we were looking at something wholly modern outside of the keep, connecting two parts of the building that previously weren't connected. So from the 1960s block into the Norman keep. And it's really modern, very sculptural, and it had to be extremely different from any of the fabric that's already here. And it was an exciting part to be working on because it's, I guess it's the new intervention. It's the thing that people are going to see when they walk across the bridge. They're going to see that glass bridge. They're going to see the sculptural, modern kind of bit of new.
We have probably more communication with the client and designers and consultants than you would on any other job, just because there is so much to kind of get through. And we've already worked through a number of complex challenges successfully, and I've no reason to doubt that will continue. I think that relationship, it's really working.
that is how we are coming out of the traditional and going into a more kind of bespoke or adapted process for this project. It brings incredible satisfaction to see that.
The Morgan Sindall team have been fantastic. They've really grasped the importance of the project for Norfolk Museum Service, but for Norfolk as a whole. And many of the team are local or have strong connections with the area. Some of them also remember coming to visit Norwich Castle when they were small. So, you know, they can see why it's important to make this the very best that it can be.
We need to be making sure that we get that right and understand what everyone wants to see from this project. And the only way that we can do that is working with our consultants, with our client, with our end user, to make sure we fully understand the scope and the scheme, but also to be completely respectful to the historic nature and fabric of the building.
They've also been brilliant at understanding the complexities and practicalities of working in what is a Grade 1 listed building on a scheduled ancient monument. So that does add additional things to consider, and the Morgan Sindall team have been brilliant about thinking about new ways of doing things and different ways to ensure that the building and the historic fabric is always protected and at the heart of everything we're looking to do here.
When you first come into a project like this, without having anything directly comparable to it, because it is so unique, you have to listen and understand the drivers of each individual specialism within the team. We need to make sure that by speaking openly, honestly, and making sure that everyone understands the drivers and the importance of what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. That's how important collaborative working is on here. Everyone is important in their own individual right, and we need to be respectful of it.
My hope is that Norwich Castle will remain somewhere which delights, entertains, educates and enthuses people about the history of Norwich, not only the medieval period but also getting them to explore the rest of the museum, so that they'll come to love Norwich Castle as much as I love it.
The way I define the success of this project is when everyone is satisfied of the outcome. Once we deliver this project, I will celebrate like I never did on any other project I've worked on.
I think, we will feel proud. I think that we will stand back and we will see something that not only brings back to life the Norman Keep, it better utilizes some of the other areas of the building, and I think it will have such a good public benefit and that interaction and bringing people in and getting them excited about what this building represents. You know, I think that will be an extremely joyful and proud moment, and I think that we're all really, that's always in the back of our mind.
It'll be probably the best feeling ever, because of it's definitely, I don't want to say stressful, but it is a very difficult job, but everyone is going to be really proud because of the work that's gone in, and what an amazing opportunity it is for everyone.
On any project, you're proud if you can see the contribution. If it's to an important building, and B, a building that's so well thought of in your local area, it sort of adds another dimension. I think we will be enormously proud of the scheme, and we want to share it, I think, and talk about what we've come through and what we've learnt.
How do you find a more prestige, romantic, if you like, setting for doing what we're doing, and to have the added benefit of so many people enjoying this building makes it even more special. The fact that people are going to walk over this bridge, pay money to go into this building, and appreciate, hopefully, how sympathetic the whole thing has been done, and to bring the children here and to bring colleagues here, yeah, it will be the pinnacle of my career.